The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Elder Counselor Gray stepped up to the speaking platform. His blue-tinted skin looked pale under the bright lights, and his forearms trembled slightly as he gripped the podium. The massive hall, filled with representatives from over 300 species, waited in unusual stillness. Members of the council, Gray's voice echoed through the chamber. I stand before you today to issue the most important warning of my 300-year career. He paused, his large eyes scanning the gathered assembly. Never, under any circumstances, should we involve humans in our wars again. A murmur rippled through the chamber. In the upper observation deck, Ambassador Stone of Earth sat quietly, his weathered face betraying no emotion. He had expected this day would come. 2 standard years ago, Gray continued, we witnessed the end of the conflict between the Bright Empire and the Star Collective. What began as a simple trade dispute evolved into the most devastating war our galaxy has seen in 10 millennia. His voice grew harder, not because of the initial participants, but because someone had the profound lack of wisdom to invite humans to participate. The chamber's holographic display activated, showing the image of a small blue-green planet, Earth. It looked harmless enough, spinning peacefully in the vast darkness of space. 2 centuries ago, when we discovered this world, we found a species still using primitive chemical rockets to explore their own solar system. We welcomed them into the galactic community, shared our technology, and watched them advance. Gray's secondary arms clutched his robe tightly. We thought we understood them. We were wrong. The display shifted to show various human achievements since first contact, their rapid adaptation of alien technology, their innovative engineering solutions, their quick expansion across several star systems. Nothing in the images hinted at the military potential that would later shock the galaxy. When the Star Collective approached Earth for military support, they asked for a token force, a simple show of solidarity from one of their trading partners. They expected a few ships, perhaps a small contingent of troops. Gray's voice dropped lower. They had no idea what they were unleashing. In the observation deck, Ambassador Stone allowed himself a small smile. He remembered the initial reaction when human ships first arrived at the Battle of New Dawn. The other species had practically laughed at their relatively small fleet. That laughter hadn't lasted long. The humans, Gray continued, don't approach warfare like we do. While we wage war with clear rules, established protocols, and acceptable targets, humans, he shuddered visibly. Humans treat war as a total commitment. They don't just fight with their weapons. They fight with their minds, their industry, their very essence. The display showed clips from various battles, carefully censored to protect the more sensitive council members. Even these sanitized images caused several representatives to turn away. Their ships, which we initially dismissed as primitive, proved to be more adaptable than anything we had ever encountered. Their tactics, which seemed chaotic and random, concealed a devastating effectiveness that our strategic computers failed to predict. And their soldiers. Gray paused, collecting himself. Their soldiers displayed a capacity for both violence and innovation that should have been impossible in any rational species. Ambassador Stone shifted in his seat, remembering the reports from those early battles. The alien races had expected humans to follow their carefully structured combat protocols. Instead, they got space guerrilla warfare, improvised weapons, and strategies that most species considered insane until they proved devastatingly effective. This warning, Gray's voice rose with urgency, must be entered into every military database in the galaxy. Humanity must be classified as a Class 1 military asset, too dangerous to be deployed except in cases of total galactic emergency. He looked directly at the human ambassador. Not because they are evil, but because they are too effective, too adaptable, too willing to do whatever it takes to win. The chamber remained silent as Gray's words sank in. In the quiet, Ambassador Stone stood up and walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the massive space. He had reports to send back to Earth. They would be pleased to know their reputation was still protecting them, 2 years after the war's end. As he reached the door, Stone heard Gray's final words. May we never forget the lesson we learned. In war, humans don't just fight. They transform. And that transformation is something our galaxy may never be ready to face again. Admiral West stood at the bridge of the EFS Terra Nova, watching the distant flashes of light that marked the battle between the Bright Empire and Star Collective forces. The human fleet had arrived 3 hours ago, but the two alien armies were too busy with their proper warfare to notice the newcomers. They're still ignoring our hails, his communications officer reported. The Star Collective commander says to wait our turn in the battle sequence. West's weathered face broke into a slight smile. Well, if they won't acknowledge our presence, we might as well show them why that's a mistake. He turned to his tactical officer. Prepare the fleet for Pattern Delta. Let's show them how humans dance. The alien warships followed their ancient battle protocols, forming perfect geometric patterns as they exchanged fire at predetermined ranges. Their computers calculated acceptable damage ratios and casualties, everything conducted according to rules established thousands of years ago. They never expected the humans to ignore every single one of those rules. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Bright Empire's flagship lost contact with 3 of its escort vessels, not through destruction. They simply vanished from all sensors. The Star Collective vessels in that sector reported similar anomalies. Primitive cloaking technology, the Bright Empire's admiral scoffed from his command pod. These humans think they can improve on our 10,000-year-old designs. His dismissal turned to shock when the missing ships reappeared, directly between the two alien fleets. West's voice crackled across all channels, to all vessels in this sector. The Earth fleet offers you one chance to cease fire and return to negotiations. After this demonstration, the offer may not remain open. Both alien fleets ignored the warning. Their battle computers calculated a 98.7% chance of destroying the human ships caught between their lines. They fired simultaneously. What happened next would be studied in war colleges across the galaxy for centuries. The human ships didn't try to dodge the incoming fire. Instead, they fired maneuvering thrusters in seemingly random patterns. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes that should have struck killing blows passed harmlessly through the spaces where human ships had been microseconds before. What you're seeing, West transmitted on an open channel, is something we call unpredictable movement patterns. On Earth, we learned this from watching birds evade predators. Simple, but effective. Before either alien fleet could recalculate their firing solutions, the human ships launched their own attack. But instead of using their main weapons, they deployed what appeared to be space junk, debris from their own ships. The alien commanders laughed at this seemingly desperate tactic. Their laughter stopped when the debris exploded into clouds of highly magnetized particles, shorting out sensors and shields across both fleets. That trick, West continued casually, we learned from octopuses on Earth. When threatened, they release clouds of ink to confuse predators. We just adapted it for space warfare, with both alien fleets partially blinded and their shields compromised. The human ships struck. They didn't fire in the accepted patterns or at regulation distances. Instead, they closed to point-blank range, targeting specific systems with surgical precision. In less than 20 minutes, 30% of both alien fleets were disabled. Not destroyed, just unable to fight. This, West's voice carried a hint of satisfaction, is how humans wage war. We don't just use our weapons. We use our minds. We learn from everything around us. And most importantly, we don't fight to maintain acceptable casualty ratios. We fight to win. The battle paused as both alien fleets struggled to comprehend what had happened. Their battle computers couldn't process warfare conducted this way. It violated every rule, every tradition, every concept they understood about civilized combat. In the stunned silence, West made one final transmission. Now, shall we discuss those negotiations, or would you like another demonstration of how humans fight when we're actually trying? The peace talks began within the hour. Back on the Terra Nova's bridge, West looked at the status display showing minimal casualties on all sides. "Send word to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them Phase 1 is complete, and tell them the aliens' response was exactly what we expected. They still haven't realized this was just a test of their capabilities." He turned to watch the disabled alien ships being towed toward the negotiation point. "They think they've seen how humans wage war," he muttered. "They haven't seen anything yet." Captain Rivers watched from her command chair as her ship, the ESS Artemis, drifted silently through the debris field. The remains of a forgotten battle provided perfect cover for what she had planned. Behind her vessel, 5 other human ships lurked in similar positions, their engines cold and systems running at minimal power. "Status report on the Bright Empire patrol," she asked quietly, though there was no real need for silence in space. 6 ships following their standard patrol route," her sensor officer replied. "They'll reach our position in 15 minutes. Still no sign they've detected us." Rivers nodded. The alien ships never varied their patrol routes. They considered it dishonorable to show fear by acting unpredictably. She had spent 3 weeks studying their patterns, and now it would pay off. "All ships, execute Operation Thunderbolt on my mark," she transmitted to her small fleet. The name had confused their alien allies in the Star Collective. They couldn't understand why humans named their military operations after weather phenomena. They understood even less why humans enjoyed the element of surprise so much. The Bright Empire patrol appeared right on schedule, their ships arranged in a perfect hexagon formation. Rivers watched them approach through the debris field, their sensors sweeping in standard patterns, their weapons powered but not active. They had grown comfortable in this sector, believing it secure. "Now," Rivers commanded. What happened next would become required study material in the Bright Empire's military academies, as an example of how everything could go wrong at once. The human ships, hidden within the debris, activated powerful electromagnets salvaged from old mining equipment. The metallic wreckage around them suddenly became a swarm of high-velocity projectiles, shredding through the patrol's shields as if they weren't there. "Bright Empire vessels, this is Captain Rivers of the Star Collective Alliance," she transmitted as her ships powered up and emerged from hiding. "Your shields are down, your formation is broken, and we have targeting solutions on all your vital systems. Would you like to surrender?" The alien commander's response came quickly. This is not proper warfare. You can't use debris as weapons. There are protocols." "There are no protocols in survival," Rivers cut him off. "Humanity learned that lesson long ago. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons." They surrendered in 20. Later, in the debriefing with Star Collective admirals, Rivers faced harsh questioning about her tactics. "You used mining equipment as weapons," one admiral stated, his crystalline form shimmering with disapproval. "You turned space debris into projectiles. This is not how civilized species conduct warfare." "With respect, Admiral," Rivers replied, "humans don't believe in civilized warfare. We believe in winning while minimizing casualties on both sides. Every ship we captured today means crews who didn't die." "But the psychological impact," another admiral began, "is exactly what we wanted," Rivers finished. "The Bright Empire now knows that anything can be a weapon in human hands. They'll hesitate before every engagement, question every debris field, doubt every empty sector of space. That hesitation will save lives." The admirals couldn't argue with her results. In 3 weeks, Rivers' unconventional tactics had secured an entire sector that the Star Collective had been fighting over for years. But the way she did it disturbed them deeply. That night, Rivers received a private transmission from Admiral West. "Well done, Captain. The aliens still think we're just being creative with our tactics. They haven't realized we're actually holding back most of our capabilities. Keep them thinking that way." Rivers looked at the tactical display showing the day's victory. The aliens were right to be disturbed, but for the wrong reasons. They worried about humans using debris as weapons. They should have worried about what it meant that humans could look at anything and see its potential as a weapon. "Understood, Admiral," she replied. "Though I suspect they'll figure it out soon enough. They haven't seen our real innovations yet." She turned to her crew, who were already working on their next adaptation of civilian technology for combat use. The aliens thought humans were unpredictable now. They hadn't seen anything yet. General North stood in Earth's primary defense command center, studying the massive holographic display with cold eyes. The bright Empire's fleet had just appeared at the edge of the solar system, exactly where humanity's defense plans had predicted they would. "They think they're being clever," North said to his staff, jumping in behind Neptune's orbit to hide their approach. He shook his head, as if we hadn't prepared for this since we first reached space. A junior officer spoke up. "Sir, the bright Empire's transmission is coming through." The alien commander appeared on the main screen, his bony crest raised in what his species considered a threatening display. "People of Earth," he announced, "your interference in our war ends now. Surrender your forces, or we will demonstrate why the bright Empire has ruled space for 10,000 years. North's response was calm, almost bored. "This is General North of Earth Defense Command. I see you've brought 3,000 ships to attack our home. I'm afraid we've already prepared for that." He nodded to his communications officer. "Activate the Sol defense grid." Across the solar system, thousands of seemingly inactive satellites and space debris suddenly came to life. The bright Empire fleet found themselves surrounded by a web of human defensive platforms that had been disguised as communication relays, research stations, and even ancient space junk. "First warning," North transmitted. "Leave our solar system now." The alien commander laughed. "You think your primitive defensive platforms scare us? We've seen your technology level. These are likely just more of your simple tricks." North sighed. "Second warning. You are threatening our homeworld. Our response will be proportional to that threat. Your species has never faced the full might of a unified bright Empire fleet," the commander boasted. "Your defenses will." "Final warning," North cut him off. "You are about to learn why humans have so many stories about Pyrrhic victories." The bright Empire fleet began their advance toward Earth. They expected the humans to activate their defensive platforms immediately. Instead, North waited. The alien ships passed the orbit of Uranus, then Saturn, then Jupiter. Still no response from Earth's defenses. "Your inaction proves your weakness," the alien commander transmitted. North finally allowed himself a small smile. "No, we just wanted you committed to your course." He turned to his staff. "Activate the terraform protocol." Suddenly, the ring system around Saturn began to move. The aliens watched in confusion as millions of pieces of ice and rock shifted orbit, drawn by hundreds of gravity manipulators that humans had hidden there decades ago. Within minutes, the entire ring system transformed into a vast cloud of hypervelocity projectiles, all aimed at the space between Mars and Jupiter, exactly where the alien fleet would be in 40 minutes. "Impossible," the alien commander whispered. "You weaponized a planetary ring system." "Of course we did," North replied. "We weaponized everything in our solar system. Those defense platforms you spotted, they're not weapons. They're just sensors to help us aim the real defenses." The alien fleet tried to change course, but North's next words froze them in place. "Oh, and if you're thinking of running, look at your long-range scans. While we've been talking, similar launches have begun from the Kuiper Belt. You're already inside our kill box." The bright Empire commander stared in horror at his tactical display. His entire fleet was about to be caught between two waves of natural projectiles, each piece moving at speeds that would turn them into civilization-ending weapons. You would destroy your own solar system structure to win." "No," North corrected him. "The rings will reform eventually. This is just one of our smaller defensive options. Would you like to see the bigger ones?" The bright Empire fleet retreated so fast, they left some of their slower ships behind. As they fled, North's final transmission followed them. Remember this. You came to our home thinking we would be an easy target. Instead, you learned that humans don't just prepare for war. We prepare for apocalypse. Spread the word. In the command center, a young officer turned to North. Sir, should we tell them about the other defense systems? North shook his head. Let them worry about what else we might have ready. Sometimes, the fear of what humans might do is more effective than showing them what we can do. The Star Collective's military hospital orbiting their homeworld was always quiet. Today, that silence was broken by screams, not of pain, but of terror. They're everywhere. They're nowhere. We can't fight what we can't understand. The bright Empire commander thrashed in his medical pod, his 4 eyes wide with fear. He was the 3rd enemy officer this week to be brought in with similar symptoms. The head doctor turned to the human medical advisor, Dr. Pierce. I don't understand. His physical injuries are minor, but his mind. She gestured helplessly at the readings. What did your people do to them? Pierce watched the alien commander with clinical interest. We introduced them to psychological warfare, something your species never developed because you all fight by rules. He paused. We showed them that in war, the mind is as vulnerable as the body. Across the galaxy, reports flooded in about the new human tactics. They weren't just fighting ships and soldiers anymore. They were attacking the very way their enemies thought. On a bright Empire colony world, the local defense force stared in horror at their communication screens. Every channel showed the same thing. Their own ships, their own weapons, being turned against them in ways they had never imagined possible. The humans had captured their technology and transformed it into nightmares. Sir, a young officer reported to his commander, the humans are broadcasting footage of what they did to our attack fleet at Earth. They're showing it everywhere, on every frequency. They've added analysis, showing exactly how they predicted our tactics. The commander slumped in his chair. They're not just defeating us. They're teaching everyone how to defeat us. In another sector, a Star Collective admiral watched a human battle group approach a contested planet. Instead of attacking, the human ships began broadcasting on all frequencies. Attention, bright Empire forces. We know you have hidden 47 ships behind the planet's largest moon. We know about the minefield you planted in the asteroid belt. We know about your backup fleet waiting to jump in from the nearby star system. The human commander's voice continued, calm and certain. We know everything. We've known for weeks. Would you like to see the recordings of your own commanders planning these ambushes? The bright Empire fleet retreated without firing a shot. Back in the military hospital, Dr. Pierce explained to his alien colleague, humans learned long ago that fear is more effective than force. Your species sees war as a contest of strength. We see it as a contest of will. But the Terra Protocol, the alien doctor whispered, the reports say you're deploying it across multiple sectors. Pierce nodded. Ah yes, the Terra Protocol. Would you like to know what it really is? He smiled slightly. It's empty ships, automated drones, fake transmissions. We're making the enemy see human forces everywhere, making them think we're always watching, always one step ahead. That's horrifying, the alien doctor said. No, Pierce corrected. What's horrifying is that it works. Your species are so used to direct, honorable combat that the mere suggestion of humans being everywhere, watching everything, breaks your military doctrine completely. A nurse rushed in with new reports. More enemy ships surrendering. More colonies requesting peace talks. More soldiers experiencing psychological breakdowns after facing human forces. The worst part, Pierce continued, watching the alien commander still thrashing in his pod, is that we're still holding back. This isn't even our full psychological warfare capability. We haven't even shown you our actual Terra Protocol yet. The alien doctor stared at him. You mean, this isn't the real protocol? Pierce shook his head. The real one is much worse. Pray you never have to see it. He turned to leave. then paused. Remember, everything we've done so far has been designed to minimize casualties. Imagine what would happen if we decided to stop being merciful. As he walked away, Pierce could hear the alien doctor frantically sending messages to her superiors. The fear was spreading, just as planned. Human fear was proving to be the most effective weapon in this war, and humanity hadn't even started being truly frightening yet. Ambassador Stone stood at the window of the Peace Conference Station, watching ships from both the Bright Empire and Star Collective dock in perfect, nervous formation. Behind him, Admiral West and Captain Rivers sat quietly at the negotiation table. Their presence had been specifically requested by both sides, not as threats, but as guarantors that the peace would hold. The human delegation will mediate these talks, announced the station's eye. Both parties have agreed to this condition. Stone turned from the window, his face carefully neutral. Just 6 months ago, neither side would have trusted humans to mediate anything. Fear was a powerful motivator for change. The Bright Empire's Supreme Commander entered first, his once proud crest now held low. The Star Collective's High Admiral followed, her crystalline form dimmed from its usual bright glow. Both leaders had personally experienced human warfare. Both had clearly been changed by it. Before we begin, Stone said softly, I want to remind everyone that Earth's only goal was to end this conflict with minimal loss of life. Everything we did was focused on that objective, by terrifying us into submission. The Supreme Commander asked, but there was no anger in his voice, only tired understanding. Yes, Stone replied simply. Fear is expensive, but war is costlier. We made you afraid of us so you would stop killing each other. The High Admiral's crystals flickered. Your methods, the psychological warfare, the weaponized civilian technology, the Terra Protocol. She paused. Was any of it real? Captain Rivers smiled slightly. Some of it, not all. But you'll never know which parts were real and which were bluffs. That uncertainty is your guarantee of future peace. Admiral West nodded. You'll always wonder what else we might have hidden away, what other ordinary things we might have turned into weapons, how many other protocols we never had to use. The negotiations proceeded quickly after that. Both sides had seen enough of human warfare to know that peace was their best option. The trade dispute that had started the war seemed trivial now, easily resolved through simple compromise. As the leaders signed the peace treaty, Stone activated a holographic display showing the war's statistics. Notice, he said quietly, the declining casualty rates after human involvement. We didn't win this war by killing your people. We won it by making you think about the cost of fighting. And that, West added, is the real reason both your species now fear us. Not because we're powerful, but because we understand something you don't. True victory isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about changing how they think. The Supreme Commander looked at the humans with new understanding. You weren't fighting a war at all, were you? You were conducting the galaxy's largest psychological operation. Of course, Rivers confirmed. Why destroy fleets when you can convince them to retreat? Why devastate worlds when you can persuade them to surrender? Every ship we didn't have to destroy meant crews who lived to go home. As the alien leaders prepared to leave, Stone delivered one final message. Remember this moment. Remember that humans didn't defeat you through superior strength or advanced technology. We defeated you because we understand that the most powerful weapon in any war is the mind. Later, after the aliens had departed, West turned to Stone. They still don't realize, do they, that everything, from our primitive first contact to our limited military capability, was part of the plan. Stone shook his head. No, and they never will. Let them think they've seen the full extent of human capability. Let them think they understand us now. And if another war comes, Rivers asked, then they'll discover, Stone replied, that what they learned about humans in this war was just the beginning. But hopefully, the fear of that discovery will be enough to keep the peace. He looked out at the stars, where ships from both former enemies were departing together. Sometimes, he mused, the best victory is the one where your enemies think they finally understand you, while never realizing that they've only seen the surface of what you can do. Elder Counselor Gray's voice had grown hoarse from speaking, but he continued his address to the Galactic Council. The massive chamber remained silent, every representative from hundreds of species still hanging on his words as he concluded the cautionary tale. And so, he said, we learned the true horror of human warfare, not from the weapons they used, but from the weapons they didn't have to use. Not from the battles they won, but from the battles they prevented through fear alone. In the observation deck, Ambassador Stone watched with the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the entire session. Beside him sat Admiral West and Captain Rivers, both now serving as Earth's military attaches to the Council. The humans, Gray continued, never once used their most devastating weapons. They never revealed their ultimate capabilities. Instead, they did something far more terrifying. They made us imagine what those capabilities might be. The chamber's holographic display showed scenes from the war, human ships appearing from nowhere, alien fleets retreating from empty space, entire battle groups surrendering to threats that might have been bluffs. We thought we understood warfare. Gray's voice carried a tremor now. We had fought wars for thousands of years, always following the proper protocols, the established rules. The humans taught us that real warfare has no rules, only objectives. A representative from a younger species stood up. But surely now we know their capabilities. We can prepare for their tactics in the future. Stone's quiet laugh from the observation deck drew every eye in the chamber. He stood, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. You still don't understand. Everything you saw in the war, everything I'm about to tell you, might be true, or might be another layer of deception. That uncertainty is humanity's greatest defense. He walked to the central platform, taking position beside Gray. You're about to pass laws restricting human military involvement in galactic conflicts. We support these laws. In fact, he smiled slightly. We suggested them to your diplomatic court 3 months ago. A murmur of unease rippled through the chamber. Think about that. Stone continued. We want you to restrict us. We want you to fear us. Because as long as you fear human military potential, you'll work harder to maintain peace. And peace, his voice softened, was always our objective. Admiral West stood up next. You think you've seen human warfare at its worst. Everything we did in that war was designed to minimize casualties. Imagine what we would do if we actually wanted to destroy our enemies. Captain Rivers joined them, her voice carrying the same calm certainty that had terrified enemy fleets. You're writing laws to prevent humans from participating in galactic wars. But ask yourselves, are you writing these laws to protect others from us, or to protect yourselves from knowing what we can really do? The chamber erupted in nervous discussion. Gray raised all 4 arms for silence. The motion before us is simple. The Human Warfare Prohibition Act. It will classify humans as a Class 1 military asset, too dangerous to be deployed except in cases of total galactic emergency. We vote in favor, Stone said simply. You? What? Gray turned to him in surprise. Of course we vote in favor, Stone replied. This act ensures that the next time someone considers starting a galactic war, they'll remember what happened when humans were involved. They'll remember that they never saw our full capabilities. They'll wonder what else we might be capable of. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various representatives. And that fear, that uncertainty, will do more to maintain peace than any weapon ever could. The act passed unanimously. As the council session ended, Stone turned to his fellow humans. Well done, everyone. Phase 3 is complete. There was a Phase 3? Gray asked, overhearing. Stone just smiled, leaving the elder counselor to wonder, as humanity intended, just how many phases there really were, and what they might entail. The humans had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Sometimes, the most effective weapon isn't the one you use. It's the one everyone thinks you might have.